People in the room, just ignore me. I'm doing a mic sound check for the people at home. So carry on talking, don't listen to me. Alistair and Fiona, how well can you hear me? Can you just give me an indication? Just waiting for some feedback.
We should have a clicker, yeah. Yeah, Hina should provide you with one, yeah. Right, they've not...
Can you folks at home hear me okay?
Yeah.
On your
Yeah. Yeah, excellent.
And then the next thing I need to try and figure out is how the brightness, because you can't, I've noticed you can't see the words on here. So I'm hoping that will fix itself. Yeah, let's try that. We'll see if I can get, because on that screen it says teach me hashtag GAConf24. So what we'll try and do, we'll try and get the lighting done. Yeah, thanks Alistair. We've got to try and get the lighting changed. See if we can get that screen visible for you, okay? So Fiona and Alistair are my technical people checking online. They're also going to retweet and promote the fact, share the channel and everything, so more people join from here.
Okay, we're going to get started in 2 minutes. So 2 minutes to grab drinks and take a seat.
My accent is like the worst. I think it's very smart. And then I think to myself back, I sound like a tractor. Drinking my soda from tractor from the river.
Oh, that's better, isn't it? Because the words weren't appearing. It was just a green. It was just a white glow.
I was wondering if you had it on the display mode where the notes pages came up or not?
The laptop is
Is
there.
that the one for the...
Yeah.
No, that's a large. This is a medium.
Right.
In order to appear on the screen, they've got to be left in this way. No, you're good.
Well, we at least have Alistair Hamill and Fiona.
Not too close. So,
you need a pickup?
Oh, your camera's got it. I'll ask
Yeah, this is streaming an event on the internet, so if you want to see the screen, you don't want that in front of you. But you can sit there just because you don't want that. Right there. Facing that way. Yeah.
Okay, if we can make a start, please. Thank you so much. If you are still standing, if you can take a seat, conversations can stop for a little while. I was running a session for all the local trainee teachers the other day. They were all a bit late. We're having a bit of mutiny about the fact they had too many online sessions, and mine was live with students talking. And one of them wouldn't shut up at the start, and I actually had to get teacher on her. And I scared my SLT member that was in the room, because she's like, I've never heard you speak to anyone like that. But she was so rude, she just kept talking. Anyway, they're a bit arrogant, that particular bunch of trainees, which is a bit of a shame. Right, anyway, welcome to Teach Me 2024. This is a fabulous chance for people to give a little 5-6 minute snippet of something that they do in their classroom that works really well, that you can generally take away and do yourself. We've got 1 or 2 sessions that are not quite like that this evening, but most of them are things you should be able to take away and have a go at, give you some inspiration for things that you'd like to do in your own classrooms. Before we just start off, I do have a spare quiz ticket here. If anybody wants it, please do let me know at the end. Someone has left one and said to give it away. We have got 8 speakers for you this evening. We are ending with Teach Me Institution of Kit. It has to be every Teach Me from now on. Apart from that, we've only actually got a couple of people that have actually spoken at Teach Me ever before. We've got a lot of new voices today. Some of them have not presented before. Some of them are people that you've heard of, especially if you're on Twitter, Scott, who still, we haven't really heard speak at a presentation, but, you know, Briley and I managed to twist his arm last week, which I'm really pleased about. And you've got a whole variety of things. We're looking at inclusive fieldwork, we're looking at SEND students, we're looking at rocks. We've got all sorts going on. I'm really, really pleased with the fact we've got some new voices today. So I am going to warn you, if you are speaking, that you have a minute left. We need to try and stick to the 6 minutes if at all possible. I know some of you are just going to speak fast to do that. I'm going to put a timer on. So I'm going to start off with Lucy. Now, Lucy's quite local to me. She works at King Edward Keggs, I can never say the whole name, in Chelmsford, which is a very prestigious boys' grammar school. And she does teach one of my ex-students who lives in Chelmsford and decided to move for sixth form. And I'm very jealous that you get to teach her. But I'm glad to say that you think she's a good geographer, because I'm sure I have something to do with that already. I'll pass over. Lucy's doing rocking geography, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm one of those who's going to be speaking really very quickly. I timed this at about 9 minutes first time around, 7 minutes the second time around. So, here we go. I'm afraid, and apologies in advance, it's not going to be possibly as useful as my double presentation a few years ago. So, but hey, hopefully you'll take something from this. I'm also a geology teacher, which is why I thought I'll introduce a little bit of geology for you this evening. Obviously, a lot of us teach geology within physical geography aspects. So, but most of you won't have access to a geological collection at school. So what I thought I'd do this evening was if you would like, normally sort of, the idea of a student having like an artifact or something tactile in their hand really makes the subject come alive. So what I thought I'd do is give you a shopping list of the top rocks to get in your collection, if you don't have a collection yet. Once you've done that, work towards the 500 odds that we might have or not have. So, where is geology and geography? Everywhere. It really underpins an awful lot of stuff. So it's just a few ideas now. I'm not going to go through all of them for time sake. But there's quite a lot of different ideas in there, from everything from energy in terms of whether it's fossil fuels or where we can store CO2, through to how rock types show the different ecosystems and continental drift linking to tectonics, where we get our water from, is it clean water or not, all of those sorts of different aspects. So rock number one is the coral limestone. It's like, I appreciate you can't see these here, but feel free, I'm staying for the quiz and everything, so feel free to come and have a nosy at them later. So coral limestone does a dual purpose, this one. So you've got your coral reef, many of us probably teach that at least at GCSE. So the idea of putting some coral in the hand, this one's about 300 million years old, so telling them about the idea you've got some 300 million year old coral in your hand, pretty fun. And the idea, they can look at the idea of a colonial aspect with it, and looking at the idea of the different polyps and things like that. That's quite useful. And then, of course, you've got the limestone aspect of that. So we approach that with the weathering side of things. So things like your carbonation aspects. If you speak very nicely to a science department, they can probably issue you with a small bottle of dilute hydrochloric acid. Do this under a visualizer. You should be wearing safety glasses. Put it on the plate, drop some dilute hydrochloric acid on it, and it'll fizz, which gets quite a bit of excitement at that stage. Effectively, the idea of slightly acidic rainwater falling onto your limestone and dissolving it. Limestones have aquifer potential, of course, in terms of storing water. Admittedly, not coral limestone so much. It's just sort of generally jointed limestone. But if you've only got one bit of limestone, it will do in terms of discussion with that. And like all of the ones this evening, you can then have the discussion of sedimentary versus igneous versus metamorphic, but that of course goes with all of the specimens this evening. The next one, fairly obvious one, is looking at the idea of fossil fuels and the idea of coal. There's a very good reason this one's in a bag, because I'll end up with a hand covered in coal dust if I'm not careful. Anthracite coal is a particularly nice one to get, really nice and shiny. It's the best type of coal it is because of most of the volatiles being driven off. So you're generally left with about 95% carbon, which makes it as pure as you get and really sort of very useful in terms of efficiency for energy. So you've obviously got your energy sources. You can talk about the formation of it. You can talk about sort of the peat bogs and the tropical swamps aspect in terms of also linking to your ecosystems. If you can get hold of a block of dried out peat, even better, because then you can actually see the organism sort of roots and all that sort of thing in it, and then compare it to what it looks like in present day. Of course, industrial development, huge thing with sort of the coal fields. Sort of you think of places like South Wales and places like that. So the idea of looking at place and place development, why have those places developed like they have? Often because of natural resources such as coal. So it can often be a lead into something like that. And of course, we've seen decline with the lack of sort of the less use of coal fields in recent decades. So again, understanding the idea of deindustrialization and all those sorts of things all links back to that little lump of coal. Granite, if you're talking upland and lowland, so certainly with my GCSE class, we start off in year 10 with the idea of upland versus lowland landscapes. And upland is a very classic one in terms of granite because it's really resistant. So it's the idea that it's interlocking crystals and that sort of thing. So having a look at the idea of different types of granite is really useful. It's also a bit like limestone, it's often very well jointed. So it gives you really good opportunity to talk about weathering. But of course, we're talking upland areas. So in this case, it's going to be a freeze-thaw weathering that you would be picking up on with this one. Looking at things like your Dartmoor tors and things like that would be a really nice link in to that one. Granite, my mum often worries about just how much granite I have in my rooms because, of course, it does contain some radioactive minerals. So there is an element of geothermal energy heat generation with that one, which is being looked at by the BGS for future energy use in the UK. Basalt is a different type of igneous rock, fine grained, so you can talk about crystal size. And of course, this is more your oceanic lithosphere as opposed to granite being continental lithosphere. So it's plate tectonics there, looking at the changes of the differences in density in terms of that one. Slate, I don't use as much in A-level geography or GCSE geography, but I want it in there because of the metamorphic. It is formed by regional metamorphic processes, which is a mountain building, so it comes into the tectonics. And obviously has huge economic uses in certain places, such as the Lake District and Wales. So there's those sorts of aspects. I personally tend to use it when I'm teaching the Cockermouth case study in the Lake District because it's impermeable, so the Skiddaw slates mean that places like Cockermouth tend to flood more quickly. And then the last one, which a few of you, anyone who's ever played on Minecraft, will be aware of, obsidian. Admittedly, I don't get this into geography lessons very often, but I find any excuse I can to actually mention it because it gets one heck of a lot of excitement in the classroom. So I try and find an excuse. It cools. The reason it forms is, and it looks shiny, because the crystals are so fine, you can only see them under a microscope. And that's because it's basically lava that cools in seawater, so it cools really quickly. The last really important thing, I'm going to skip over the lithologies because I'm definitely out of time, but try and get some local ones if you can. This is the really important bit. How are you going to manage this? So there's various different things. And I would suggest the first part of call, if you're thinking about this, go and speak to the British Geological Survey, who have a stand out there. Though I've told them today what I'm doing tonight. Go and have a chat to them. There's a few other associations. Speak to those of us who teach geology. There's a chance we might have spare specimens, or if we're out and about in fieldwork, we can try and gather you a specimen when we're out. And various places do rock boxes and such like. And then there are a couple of sites out there. I have no connection to geosupplies, but I've used them quite a bit. They sell rock specimens for about £3 per specimen on average. So they're not that inaccessible in terms of that sort of thing. So there's a few different ideas in terms of that one. I'll maybe put a couple of these up on my Twitter feed on @MissLFryer if you're thinking you want to have a look back at those later and make it accessible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy. Did go a little bit over there, but I think it was worth it. Genevieve, if you can come up and be ready, that'd be brilliant. So we are going international for our next one. And Genevieve is from the School of Science and Technology in Singapore. And her session is on empowering youth for age-friendly cities. Now, you are going to have to talk fast because there's a lot on here. It is amazing. I'm hoping we can get this on the website. It's a big PowerPoint. We'll work it out for you to get a lot more information. I'm going to wave wildly at you when you've got a minute there. Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Genevieve. I'm from Singapore, and I'm actually going to share with you a particular urban geography project that we did with our students. And it's a form of alternative assessment, which counts about 20% of the overall summative assessment score for the year. So just a little bit background, because SST is not a very internationally known school. We are one of the specialized independent schools in Singapore that focuses on science and technology. In terms of the geography curriculum, it's actually very similar to mainstream schools. We have students get introduced to geography at the age of 13 or 14 years old. And at the age of 15, they will choose whether to take history or geography. So there's a very important role as geography teachers in the lower secondary curriculum to excite our students so that they take the geography curriculum at the upper secondary level. So in our school, as SST or School of Science and Technology, we focus on several key aspects. So in the curriculum design, we actually infuse things like applied learning, where students use real-world issues and find solutions or innovative solutions. And in SST schools, we hope that through this exposure to some of these projects, they actually can become active local citizens. So in the design of the Sec 2 performance task, we also collaborated with the statutory board that was involved in housing projects in Singapore, the Housing Development Board. So I think it was important to set the context for our students in terms of what is aging like in cities around the world. So I'm going to talk about the various scalar approaches that we did in our classroom, the global, local, and me. So we actually asked students to research about some of the global perspectives of aging in cities, get them to come up with certain descriptions of the patterns that they observe. and perhaps ask questions like, where do you think Singapore is? If, let's say, you put them on the world map of aging cities around the world. So in terms of the local context, this has been largely debated at the parliament level. So we extracted one of the parliament debates by Mr. Henry Quagg to talk about how in Singapore, it's no different from many developed cities around the world. In fact, we are going to be the super aged city by the year 2030. So how does it matter to our students, right? Because they need to see themselves as an investor interest. So what happens was when we actually were looking at the collaboration with HDB, or Housing Development Board, they look at this area of Queenstown, which is one of the oldest housing estates in Singapore. And just coincidentally, our school campus is actually within the boundary of Queenstown. So actually that gives an added layer of vested interest for our students. So when we crafted the performance task, we were looking at how our students could come up with technological or digital solutions to help the elderly, have assisted living and active living in the district itself. And how can they, in their design, think about different elderly profiles to be inclusive of profiles of elderly who have different mobility issues, different disabilities, language barriers, so on and so forth. So we actually have to help students unpack the task because there were very big words like technological and digital solutions. What are the differences? What are the similarities? And again, how is this connected to geography? Because we don't want it to be too much of a science and technology focus. So we actually brought in very key geographical concepts. So things like space. We are not only looking at the physical location, but we are also open for students to look at the virtual space as well. In terms of place, sense of belonging would be an important part where you want the elderly to have lived memories in their everyday life. Physical and human interactions is another important aspect which they can include in their research and the proposal of the solution. And finally, social sustainability, one of the important pillars of sustainability that when we were looking at in our urban design. So in our students, we actually made them go through the methodology and research of a geographer, where they came up with secondary research, where they are looking into technology that is designed for the elderly, or Gerontech for short. And in primary research, we made them come up with some survey questions where they can actually go out to the field to gather data from the residents. So these are some of the data collected, and we made the students analyze what are some of these trends that they have observed. So I think at the end of the day, what kind of students' work did we see? So these are just some sample where we see students actually go onto the field and then coming up with solutions. Like, for example, this is a signal safety for a multi-story car park in our neighborhoods. I'm not sure if you have any of these in the UK, because the car parks that I see are mainly on the road. Yeah, so they actually talk about how there could be blind spots for both the pedestrians and the drivers if there are people walking along the ramp and all that. This is another aspect where students propose there will be, let's say, sickness in the home where there's a high risk of fall for the elderly residents, and how it connects to certain alert systems like signaling to the family members as well as the allied healthcare professionals. And of course, what about virtual hangout spaces? Do you think this is a possibility for us when we are in our golden age? Yeah, so this is something that was modeled after Bondee, B-O-N-D-E-E. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. This was an app that was developed in Singapore where students can hang out in this kind of virtual spaces. So they're really thinking far ahead how they may envision their elderly life to be, having virtual communities, etc. So our student with the top project, we actually submitted to the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition. I think in UK there's an equivalent competition. The first prize is £10,000. Yeah, but Singapore is about 3,000 Singapore dollars. Yeah. So I think overall what we like about the design was that we actually had the collaboration with multiple stakeholders, and we were glad that we had to push our students to really innovate and give them the platform to showcase some of the works at a national level. Yeah, so that's all. If you'd like to connect with me, please scan my QR code. Thank you so much.
Thank Thank you for that. That is something I can definitely see doing my students. I hope other people can too. I forgot to mention at the start, can we please give a round of applause for Discover the World Education, who have sponsored the Teach Meet today and provided you with the drinks that you have in front of you. Thank you so much. Okay, our next session is Emma Epsley. Now, Emma's is slightly different because Emma is a consultant with a quite interesting little company, was it Create to Inspire? So I'll pass over to Emma. Emma, I will wave at you when you have a minute left.
Right, I've been told I've got to stand on X. This side, yeah, not on the end. Right, I'm not doing that.
Right, so for those that are primary end of the spectrum, I just thought I'd share with you GA's initiatives fund that I did. So back in October, we found out that we had a successful GA initiatives fund application, and that allowed us to deliver a 1.5 hour virtual multi-school event via Zoom in December. And we wanted to target small rural schools who wouldn't usually take part in or couldn't justify taking part perhaps in one of our usual virtual multi-school events. These were from throughout the UK. Alongside myself presenting was Rihanna, Director at Wicked Weather Watch, a charity based in Box in Wiltshire, and also Hilda, who's an Arctic explorer and a citizen scientist and a representative from Hearts in the Ice. There's a blog post report about the event there, so these slides will be shared so you can have a good look at what we've done. But what did we do? We used Digimap for Schools to build up a little bit of place and locational knowledge. We outlined the learning objectives and the format of the session. We had a starter, which was all about getting them to think about effective questions. We had a main part that was our speaker. We put them in the hot seat, and then we questioned pupils on the back of that. And then we had a plenary where they had a carbon footprint sheet that they needed to complete and some feedback. So we put a map up of the UK and Europe. We identified where each school was located and where the presenters were located as well. And we asked them to give us some sort of brief description about their place. We also dropped in any connections that we had with their place as well. Shared the learning objectives with them. I won't read through them all now, and obviously the format of the session. Our starter activity, we wanted the children to think about what makes an effective question. So they had to come up with 3 intriguing, very different questions that they wanted to ask Hilda. We were trying to think about them, introducing them to the 5 W's and how as well, which we use a lot in geography. The main part was from Hilda. Hearts in the Ice, they spent a year in isolation in the Arctic. And they were record-breaking. They were the first women in recorded history to overwinter in the Arctic solo. So some of the photos that Hilda shared with us, and it's worth following them on Twitter. They've got a website as well, and there's certainly stuff that you could use with Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 there. But she shared some pictures of the Trappers Cabin at Bamsabu, and where she's based in Longyearbyen on Svalbard. Talked about the snowmobiles that they used, the 24 hours of darkness as well, and what it was like, the Northern Lights and her experiences of them. She's had about 300 close encounters with polar bear, and how she saw within that year Mother Nature at work, and the special bond that they had with their dog, how they sort of built a contract. So it wasn't just about them going out and exploring, but what they were doing with children thereafter and some of their subsequent work. So obviously children and teachers in schools were quite captivated by what she had to say, and had so many questions for Hilda afterwards. And you can see some of their most intriguing questions I've put on the slide there. Probably can't read it from the back, but you can have a copy of the slides to see. And then we went on after the main part, and we posed questions to the children. So what surprised you the most? Would you like to explore the poles? Why is polar exploration important? And should tourists be allowed to visit the poles when they are such fragile environments. So very much posing some open-ended questions, getting them to think critically. And we had some very, very thoughtful answers back from the children, and they were really pleased to see their comments displayed for the wider audience to see as well. I put in some favourite quotes from the day, so obviously you can read back through those afterwards. The plenary got them to complete a carbon footprint sheet. So 5 empty circles around the left-hand footprint, 5 things that they had learnt during the session, and then 5 empty circles around the right footprint, 5 actions that they might now take in order to reduce their carbon footprint and ensure the sustainability of our planet. And we're trying to sort of instill in them that they can be activists and that local actions can have a global impact. There they are reflecting upon their learning. And I've just put an example of one of the carbon footprint sheets within the slides as well. And obviously some staff and pupil voice that we captured via our feedback form. Key takeaways for me, and hopefully they may be things that you think about. She described her time at Bamsibu, the Little Bear Hut, as the period where I never had less, but I never felt richer. Encouraging youngsters to get outside in all weathers, learn to live in harmony with nature, and promoting activism. We are all responsible for the changes that our planet is experiencing, and we all have a part to play in ensuring its future. I've put some contact details on there for Wicked Weather Watch, and you can get in touch with them, and also Hearts in the Eyes through that, and my contact details too. Thank you.
Oh, there's a next virtual event on there from the library and the students.
That was very impressive, exactly 6 minutes. Well done. How you managed that. Okay, our next few sessions, we're really going for the Geography for Everyone theme with some support for SEND students. So first up is Alice McCogan. Is Alice? McCaffrey, thank you. From Felsted School, which is Essex as well. Another Essex person. Essex are well represented at this conference. I'm really impressed by this. And this is Google Sheets to help EAL students to speak like a geographer. Where's the...
Is that it right now?
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Keep on the X.
Oh, I've just broken it. Okay.
It's just about it.
It's going so well. Ooh. Thank you.
I'll wave at you when you've got it.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Alice. I'm not actually from Essex. I'm from Northern Ireland, but I live and work in Essex. Yeah, I work at Felsted School, so feel free to follow me or follow Felsted both on Twitter and Instagram. So basically, I think we've all had interactions with students where conversational English might not have been the issue, but instead key geographical terminology. On the first week of my first teaching job, I had a German student ask me halfway through a lesson on earthquakes, what's an earthquake? So described it as sort of the ground shakes, nothing. So I randomly started shaking tables. Nothing. So I next was Google Translate, and lo and behold, it saved my lesson. She knew what an earthquake was in German, and indeed some theory behind it, albeit in German. All we needed was one word to connect the dots. Most of my EAL students have okay conversational English, but geographical terminology that our non-EAL student has was non-existent, and they were behind from their peers, but had some good geographical knowledge, but not in English, so couldn't access lots of what we were doing. I knew that for this low prior attainment student in the next 2 years would definitely be a struggle with a language barrier, and I couldn't just keep referring to Google Translate to save my lessons. And so I needed her to learn geographical specific vocab really quickly. But I didn't have the time to start making German translation versions of everything I did in the classroom, with zero German linguistic skills myself. However, I am known in my department for managing everything with a Google Sheet, and even follow a Google Sheet hack TikTok account to learn even more savvy tricks. And one night, as I was scrolling through TikTok, a solution was found. I came across a video showed me how to translate columns of text into a target language. And eureka, my light bulb moment appeared. So you basically put your known language in one column, and then your next language, your target language, in another column. Okay, so for example, this was for my Chinese speaking student this year. And basically you insert the formula, which is up here, into this column, and then you get your list of geographical terms that you want that pupil to know in your known language. And then you basically just drop down the formula like you would for calculating averages on your data sheets for the endless data that we have to input. And then it automatically translates it for you straight from river into that. I don't know what that is. But my student did, and we had a eureka moment, and he felt involved in lessons, and he was having a brilliant time. I've got 2 QR codes here. One is for a video on YouTube on how to do exactly what I've just said, but in a much more eloquent way. And then the second QR code is the abbreviations that you need for the languages itself. So in the coding on Google Sheets, every language is condensed down to 2 letters. So for English, it's EN, for French, it's FR. And so you need those 2 letters for the sheet to code properly. Okay? I feel like Professor Chris Whitty back in COVID days. Okay? And so basically, this was our outcome. Pupils build personalised vocab sheets in their own language in seconds. Okay? You can have different tabs for different subjects or different topics. So my Chinese student has one for all of his subjects that he encounters. And this is really good at helping reduce cognitive load because they have everything thrown at them for 10 different subjects, and here it is all finally in one place. It can be used in study time for them to revise from, like a vocab list, like what you'd have if you were learning your French or your Spanish vocab. Or what my pupils tend to do is have this live in a lesson so that they type in words as I'm teaching, or typing in words from the board that they don't know, because I don't know that they don't know it, into their spreadsheet. So for what some students, they might understand what a glacier is in English and their own language. For others, they don't. And so it's completely personalised to them. I can then also pre-fill this as well if they share me into it, because I have a vocab or glossary sheet that all topics have for each pupil in English that they then, as prep, write in definitions for. So then I can just copy and paste that into the spreadsheet and it translates it for me automatically in seconds. So what would be quite an arduous task is done in seconds, or give pupils the responsibility to do it for themselves. It can also be used as a revision resource, so again, learning vocab straight off, and it's really time and workload effective and really efficient. So I'm just going to check if I've got anything left to say. Yeah, so then how I actually use this is I might set my class spelling tests or definition tests that all pupils have to participate in, and then I direct my EAL students to do revise from this, and it helps them revise. So yeah, also you can then have it for your non-EAL students where they just have the English column and then they write in the definitions in another column, and then they can test themselves by hiding that definition column and then typing in their definitions into the next column to see which ones they've got right. So yeah, that's what I do to help my EAL students. I'm about tomorrow as well doing another Google hack day where I talk about Google Earth, etc. So feel free to join me then. But yes, EAL students and Google Sheets.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. Really helpful, hopefully, to those of you with EAL students. I think I might use that for some of the parent information we sent out as well. It'd be really helpful. Okay, next up, I'm really excited to hear this one. I think it's going to be really good. I teach quite a few autistic girls, so I think this would be a really helpful one for them. So we've got Jo Clark, who is head of department at Queen Anne School. She's also a Forset Fellow, and she's going to be speaking on social stories for inclusive fieldwork. Stand on the X.
God, I won't be able to see it. You're right there.
Are you okay then?
Get out of the way. That's pretty cool.
Sure.
Well, that works.
Yes.
You're fine, Joe. Where is comfortable?
God, now I don't know whether to wear my glasses or not wear my glasses.
Nightmare.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Jo Clark. There you go. And I'm going to talk a little bit about social stories and how we use them to make fieldwork inclusive at our school. So first of all, what are social stories? Some of you may know already, some of you it may be a whole new thing. But they were devised back in the 1990s by a lady called Carol Gray. She was an autism educator in the United States. And her whole point was that in educating children with autism, she was preparing students for upcoming situations. And she did this by giving them logical, step-by-step information about how to navigate and behave in situations. And she was a teacher, so she also wanted them to have some level of academic success as well. Now, I'm going to give you some examples here of social stories that I haven't put together, and they're not for fieldwork. This one came from the National Autism Research Institute, and it's a social story that's aimed at during COVID when children had to wear masks. And there's a few characteristics in this story that tell us what to put into a social story. So you can see that it's very, very informative and very explicit. It tells us what the masks are made from, exactly how the virus is spread. And we refer to this as literal accuracy. It explains to the children how the mask will feel, and this is an aspect that might be very specific to children with autism who have sensory processing issues, which isn't exclusively autistic kids, of course. So it suggests how children can also prepare in advance by practicing wearing the mask before they go out. So here's another one, and this is about getting ready for school. And getting into school can cause a lot of issues for a lot of children, anxiety, autism, and so on. And once they're in school, they can find that actually, things can get a little bit better. But in here, this explains the positive and reassuring language that's used. And you can see it says, I love going to school, and uses I can. It answers all the W questions. And like the previous example, it uses illustrations that enhance the meaning of the text. And if you're a parent in this situation, you're supposed to add the hair and eye colour and school uniform for your child to personalise it, which, hopefully you're quite artistic. Right, so this is one of the first social stories that I wrote specifically for geography field trips. This was a day's field trip to Southbourne. We were collecting data on Longshore Drift with Year 8 students. And hopefully you can see how I've kept to some of the characteristics of social stories that I spoke about earlier. So firstly, I've used illustrations from the Noun Project to enhance the information. And over time, as I've taught these children for 5 years, I've used the same symbols so that there becomes some consistency and the instructions stay the same and so on. Now, typically, I would share this via email with all the children, all the students, and all the parents, and well in advance of field trips. And that gives them plenty of time to come up with questions and worries and get in contact with me if there's something specific for them that will cause them specific anxiety. Now, just for context, my school, it's a small independent girls' school, and we do have quite a lot of children with diagnosed autism and some at level 2. But also, in my opinion, we do have a very high level of children with anxiety around new, unfamiliar situations. And never was that more clear than when I first took a Year 7 class out on their first trip after COVID, and they'd never been on their Year 6 residential and so on. Anyway, so that's this is the next part where I talk to the children, I give them an example of how to get ready for the trip. Parents tell me they love this. It's their favourite bit of the instructions. So this is done very much as a checklist rather than a social story. We hope that by laying it out like this, it means that the child can get into school, because once they're in school, then the field trip can be inclusive because they're there. Okay. We also get them to wear PE kit for the same reason, to hopefully reduce some anxiety. Right, on the coach, this tends to be quite a difficult social situation for lots of children to navigate. Our year 7s to 9s don't take their mobile phones with them, so they also find that quite difficult. Previously, I had a sort of list of instructions, but you can see that this is more of a story. It says, on the coach, you must do this, we will do a register, and so on. We describe the behaviour that's needed for safety, so sitting down all the time, wearing a seatbelt all the time. But we also describe the behaviour for navigating a social situation. We suggest they bring top trumps to play with the person sat next to them. We also give them the ability to look up the journey and the location in advance. And we use positive and reassuring language, telling them, if you don't have anyone else to sit with, sit behind us. We're happy with that. Okay. Similarly, this covers the social time for a GCSE residential, what the children can do in the evening. It's got more options, more age appropriate, something for everyone, the children that need to burn off energy, the children that need some alone time, and so on. Okay, this bit's about how we support academic achievement. So this is from a Year 7 rivers trip, and this is the bit that tells them what will happen when they're at the river. So the sort of things it says is it tells them, gives them a YouTube video to watch in advance, tells them the type of behaviour that will support them. So listening, questions at the end, put your hand up, need to work as a team, and so on. Here's a similar one for GCSE level, telling children how they can be successful. Whether they're successful or not in their academic work causes anxiety for a lot of our kids, and we also link to prior learning so they have a little bit of extra confidence. Now, this part is kind of specific to autistic children or children with sensory needs, additional challenges that they may face, and this is from wearing waders and going in a trailer pulled by a tractor on a field trip. So we explained to them that the waders will feel strange, they might be a bit uncomfortable, so they're ready for that. But we also try to be positive and reassuring. They are quite funny to wear. You can get your teacher to take a photo on the school iPad and, do a funny pose or whatever. You can see the animals in the field and so on. Okay, so this, I've lost where I am now. Oh, this is just some additional notes that we use on a residential. So we've identified some very specific situations that some of our autistic children with autism and other children will find particularly worrying. What do they do if they're unhappy or upset? They don't want to ask us, we tell them. Can you get the teacher up at night? We tell them. Yes, if you feel they're unhappy. No, not by being noisy. Okay, and of course the toilet situation. So this is the whole four sides that we give out to our GCSE residential. It's four days, 3 nights. So it is quite long, but what you can see is that over the course of the social story, it kind of reduces as they need less support as time goes on, as they get used to the routines, meals, classroom protocols. They don't need less detail. And in general, the GCSE stories are written in less prose because of the age of the student and their increased experience with school trips. Now, as Denise said earlier about taking a blind student on a field trip, strategies that you put in place for children with additional needs support all children. And I love this photo because in there, I can't see the child with autism, and I know that all those children, they all came on the field trip, they all had a successful time, and hopefully the social story was part of that, and if it wasn't, nothing lost, okay? Top tips, takeaways, whatever you want to call them. This is what I would put in my social story. Okay, and then a shameless plug for a job that's going at my school, and also and also a presentation that I'm giving later on. Email me if you want to share any stories. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Just said to Joe, that needs to be a full session next year, please. Students connecting to fieldwork, definitely. Right, next up, I am very pleased to have Scott Pugsley. Scott, I love the title of this, Sensational Geography. We all teach SEND students somewhere along the line, and just understanding how we can support them better. So, Scott is assistant principal for inclusion at his school, and he does a bit of geography along the way.
I broke the clicker. Oh,
You did.
right. It's me. Oh, where am I going?
Hang on, I've got the wrong ticket.
What is this
Sorry,
next?
Click forward, click forward. Mark, sorry, I've mixed myself up. It's fine. It's
Sorry,
fine.
Mark.
Let's go back again.
Spoilers for Mark. My God, Mark, how many slides have you got?
I can't read 6 and 7. They're really interesting.
I'm not made for exercise.
That's you.
Right, there you go. There's me. Right, okay.
Scott, next time, put an introduction slide.
Right, let's get started then. Right, so I'm Scott Pugsley. I teach a little bit of everything really. So geography teacher, head of inclusion, been a Senko for quite a while now, so quite a wide range of experience in the areas of geography and SEND. First thing I'm going to do is this room, I'm going to split right down the centre, down here, right? This side, you're all number one. This side, you're all number 2. When I say 1, I want the ones to bang on the table twice. When I say 2, I want you all to clap. Right, just what practice is. When I say 1, when I say 2, 1, 2. 1, and then 2. 1, 2. Oops, for reason. So,
I wonder if they did that at home.
as you can probably tell, I am very, very, very ADHD. I'm also dyslexic, and I also have epilepsy as well. So my experience around SEND comes a lot from my experiences with education. With our students, one of the things I really like to think about is inclusion has us in the centre. It's all about us. What are we doing for everyone? It's not what we're doing for them, what are we doing for those students, what are we doing for everyone together. So thinking about that, what do we know about these students in this particular classroom? Anyone want to shout out? I'll let you shout out. Anything we know about these students in that classroom there? I mean, a lot of you've been teaching a long time. Could you rock into that classroom and just teach them? Deliver a lesson and just don't teach them students? What do you think? Gonna have a go? You can have a go, yeah. And the thing for our students is we need to know an awful lot about them. Our students have very, very different backgrounds. They have different things that make them tick. So start off with 1, 2, 1, 2. Hopefully that's put some of us into hypoarousal. We've got this really exciting thing of, oh, this is exciting, this is a bit different. And then actually some of it can then go to hypoarousal. It can feel really quite down and quite sad. And for all of us, that is part of our day-to-day life. Some of us are hyperaroused, some of us are hypoaroused. It might not happen very often. For students with ADHD and ASD, students with adverse childhood experiences will often experience our hyperarousal, our hypo, much more intensely than other people. And we're seeing that more and more, I would say, post-COVID. How many students do you know don't want to get things wrong? Or they don't want to come to school? And being that window in the centre of our window of tolerance, what we think is normal or acceptable, that window seems to become much, much smaller, and students who are accessing education, the students who are struggling to reach are becoming greater because they're either really, really excited when they come into the classroom, someone laughs at the joke and they want loads of fun, they like the feedback they get from that, and like, I just want to be a class clown. I like being hyper-aroused. I like the fact that someone's laughed at me. I don't want people to think I'm stupid. I don't want people to think I don't know it. The other end, you've got people who get told off in the classroom, completely shut down.
I don't want to go into that room anymore. I don't like that teacher. And we're seeing that more and more and more. And us as educators need to respond to that. How can we increase that tolerance in the centre, but also make sure that students try not to hit those triggers? We are not miracle workers. We're not going to stop it for every single student. But to think about what can we do as part of our normal practice to try and reduce that, to try and keep students in the centre, try and reassure them. Okay? None of this is rocket science. That's the bit that people think inclusion is very, very hard. Actually, it's a lot about consistency. So, starting with scaffolding is the first one. When we think about putting support in place for scaffolding students, questions is a big one. Teaching, we ask questions all the time, both verbally and we ask for written responses. When we hear what, why, how, that is really, really difficult to respond to in a written form. If I ask verbally in a classroom, how do you think this? Why is this? What do you think? Then students can verbalise their ideas. If you ask them questions, we need to be really, really careful about what is the response that we want. So we've got there 4 questions. Very, very run-of-the-mill geography questions. We've got what has happened in the image, why has it happened, how might this impact the people, who do you think is responsible? Is there anything wrong with those questions?
Who do you think is responsible?
Who do you think is responsible? Okay. I would say that for any students, if I asked you those verbally, everyone in this room should be able to chip in and give me some sort of response, what they think. I'm not going to get the same response from 2 people in this room. They'll be very, very different. Some people are going to give very long answers, some people are going to give me very short answers. So if I said, what's happened in this image, and one child says, an earthquake, they are not wrong. If one child goes through and tells me, well, this is because the plates have been stuck, pressure's built for a very long time, gone through all the step-by-step of an earthquake, get to the end, give me a fantastic answer, neither of those responses are incorrect. Because actually both of them answer the question that we've asked the students. Whereas if you think about verbal questions and written responses, we need to think about how we are asking the question to get the response that we want. I would say all those questions are things you've asked students verbally. If I ask students to respond to that, you'd have some really high achieving sexist girls writing pages and pages and pages of writing, and you might have a boy just writing earthquake. Neither one of those are wrong. We've not been clear on what we want as a response. Whereas if we change our questions ever so slightly, we've got, well, name the natural hazard shown in the image. Everyone's going to write earthquake, everyone's got it right. We've answered the question. Describe how this hazard occurs. Now, this does take a little bit of work beforehand, really focus on your students. This is what explain is, this is how you do it, this is what describe is, really hammer your command terminology and be consistent with that in your lessons. If you're saying how, give me 3 points. Because every student knows what they need to do to succeed. Explain 1 possible impact. Give me a point and then develop it. Everyone is then structured to be able to succeed. They know what it is you are expecting from them. They know what it is they need to respond with. Okay. Next one then. What's the scariest thing a child can see in your classroom? It's not you before 9 yet. Any idea? What's the scariest thing? Test or assessments? Flung at them. I would argue it's that. Blank bit of paper flung in front of me. When I went to university, and when I'm still doing assignments now, and they go, start this assignment, and I go, yeah, I'll do that. Get me a laptop up, and I just stare blankly at the screen thinking, I have not got a clue what I need to do. I know what I need to do, I just don't know what it needs to look like. I don't know how to put it together. All the information's here, but how am I getting it there? And for our students, we'll go, boom, answer this question. People will have a go, particularly when they start from year 6, they come up to secondary in year 7, you'll get these, right, you read it, you go, my good God, this is just pages of waffle. Lovely waffle, but useless. On the other hand, you'll have people who will really struggle to write 1 or 2 sentences because they are scared of getting it wrong. I am massively ADHD. I think people judge me all the time. I'm very, very scared of getting things wrong. Most of the time, I will struggle to put pen to paper. if I'm doing a uni assignment and I say to someone, just let me have a look at yours, I'll look at that and go, my God, that's awful, I can do better, and I'll do my own. But at least I know where to start. When I see a blank piece of paper, I will really struggle. So let's think about what support can we put in place. Often, we'll start with something like this. One good point is, this is good because. One bad point is, this is bad because. And then give me a conclusion. Scaffolding answers. One good point is the buildings have survived. It's good because no one's dead. One bad point is the buildings, people died. Yeah, that's always the bad one, isn't it? People have died in an earthquake. This is bad because, and you can't explain it because you can't. It's just a bad thing. And then thinking about, well, overall, this is good or bad because. So even though we're putting some structure in place, actually what we've done is we've limited the students with that sort of response. Because same again, you can have students writing paragraphs there, or just having 2 words on the end. We've not actually shown them what we want as a response. Is this actually effective? And the more they do it, you'll go with feedback again, and we'll go and do it again. You're going to need to add more to this. Just tell them what to do first time round, then they know. So we can start off with something like this. One good point is, give them a really good developed example. Show them what you want. This is what I want. Then the students can then self-regulate and they know, I can do that. I can apply that to my second point. I can apply it to my conclusion. I can work through step by step, but I know the level of detail. I know what needs to be included within my responses. This shows a student what to do. That gives them points to write down on a piece of paper. Doesn't give the best form of response. Lots of different ways of doing this. Most of these have been nicked from everywhere. This is not rocket science in terms of supporting students, but structure strips, really good way of doing this. Worked examples, really good way of doing this. Modelling, I don't know what's chopped off the end, but modelling examples there. I think this actually might be one of yours. Keep it, bring it, develop it. Possibly. Where students will give a response. Now, I often take a student example, generally written it myself, and we'll go through step by step and say, this bit's really good because this bit's needs developing. Let's develop that together. This bit is absolute waffle. Let's take it away. The students are brutal. They will rip apart someone else's answer, no problem whatsoever. If I give them their answer and say, what's wrong with that? They'll go, nothing. It's perfect. Or you'll go, the answer should be blah, blah, blah. Written that. No, you haven't. And you read out what they've written and they go, oh. And it's almost like a shock that what they've written in the head and what's on the paper are 2 separate things, and that's why they didn't get the marks. Give them someone else's questions to rip apart first, they become experts. They are brutal. So step by step, work through, this is how we do it, and then once they've done that, then let's apply that to their answer. Make them feel comfortable and supported with that process. Final tip in terms of scaffolding, take it down. If you start doing it, you go refer back to your answer, take it down. If you take it down, if it doesn't start working, then go back and put it back up again. Okay? I did have a little session on exams access and supporting exams access, but I think I've talked for way too long.
Full session next year, please.
Scott, you are coming to Oxford next year to do that as a full session. I'm not taking no for an answer. Yeah, the reason I let Scott talk for a little bit longer is because he has only come across to teach me. He hasn't been here all day, so I felt I had to get the best out of him, to be fair. Okay, next up, I'm just going to say this. I absolutely love my job. I love teaching geography. I love engaging with the geography community, and I am so happy right now. However, this next session is the thing that I get very nervous about. So I am really looking forward to learning even more about GIS. Mark Hadley, if you can come up, get yourself ready. Now, Mark teaches at the North London Collegiate School, which is in my hometown of Edgware. My cousin used to go there, so I do know it. It's a fabulous school, so I'm really proud of this. I'm going to set the PowerPoint back up. I'm going to set. You can click on it. I'm all on. Do you want me to sit here and do it?
you start, I'll just
Yeah.
grab mine.
X is the mark.
On the X.
Right, hello. So I've been using Survey 123 for quite a while. I just shied away from ArcGIS. It's kind of like a taboo word in many, many schools, so I'm going to try and not use that term too much. So what I'm going to talk about is using Survey 123, which we've heard quite a lot about already today to enhance our fieldwork, but also now looking at something called dashboards. It's fairly easy to use, but it can actually make fieldwork really, really quite powerful. First of all, I just wanted to thank Katie and David, but also for the help with Survey 123 and ArcGIS, but also Janine Madison from Newcastle University. She ran a session on tech and fieldwork, and this is one of the things that she suggested. So I just want to say thank you for those people, because I'm kind of stealing their ideas, basically. Right, so the scenario was we didn't have enough fieldwork down at Key Stage 3, so we thought, why don't we go and measure carbon down around the school site, and someone put some resources together, and I looked at it and I thought, actually, I'm not quite sure how to do the calculations, because on the table that was provided, they're all kind of put into large categories. And I thought, I don't think it's going to be too accurate. And then I couldn't find the resources, so I then procrastinated and thought, can I find some exciting stuff to fill some time using ArcGIS? So I thought, why not go and do it? So I went to the teachwithgis.co.uk website. I went on to the visualizer over there, which we've seen already today. Clicked on the button over there. You don't need to log on, which is really good. You need no expertise. Got a wonderful map. And then I clicked on the bit that said open map. And I was like, global land cover, I wonder if that's got anything exciting that the kids can use. Looking at our school site. And this is our school site over here. And it's kind of all, I've changed the transparency, but it's all red and then some green, which is obviously representing where the playing fields are. And then you've got a little cool slider and you can kind of move it backwards and forwards. And lo and behold, it's basically picked out where the grass is. And I thought, well, actually, that's great, but it's not really very useful for what I need to do. So I then went back to the lesson when the resources then reappeared on OneDrive. I thought, okay, we're going to measure a few trees, but we've got a big lack of spatial data. And I think that can really enhance it. As I said already, these values for the carbon, they all kind of fell into large categories. And also, lots of the trees we got, they're actually much larger than the sort of maximum values there. So I thought, how on earth can we calculate that? I also thought, if we want to answer a bigger inquiry question, like can we essentially make our school carbon neutral using the trees that we've got on site to offset our carbon emissions? And the estates guys, they gave us all the information. We're going to need a lot more data. And as we know, when you try and give students worksheets and then collate data, it takes forever and it's such a faff waste of a double lesson. So I thought I'd really like to be able to centralize what we got. So I considered using a Microsoft form, and if you use a Microsoft form, then you can use Survey 123. It's virtually the same. As I said, I wanted to share the data. So if you guys have used Mentimeter before, using dashboards is virtually the same as well. So the reason I'm saying this is 2 bits of kit that you already use or might have used or seen. ArcGIS, Esri basically offer the same stuff, but it has that geolocation spatial analysis built into it. So here we go. Quickly going to show you how I set up Survey 123. So when you load it up, one of the first things you always do, you put in something like the location, you can pinpoint it down, and you get so many different options for the different questions that you fit in. So the hardest part of putting a Survey 123 form together is deciding what are the questions that you actually want to answer. The other thing which is quite interesting, I thought, well, actually, I don't want to waste time having the students do all their calculations. Not really doing, yes, it's good numeracy, but wasn't what I wanted. And actually, once they measured the circumference of the tree trunk, we actually found some formulas on how to calculate the age of the tree and then the dry weight. And they've actually got some boxes where you can put in a calculation. So all I did there was you click on the thing, it says circumference of the tree, divide it by 2.5, and it tells you the years. So they literally had to put in the circumference of the tree, hit enter, and on the form, it basically auto-populated all the key bits of information that they needed. They then submitted that form. All great. So this was one set of data. They put the tree in, They had an app which they could use to identify it, but it was the winter, so like you couldn't really do much with the leaves. But you could also, they discovered, if we use the photo thing on their iPads, you click on the little eye button, and actually, even by looking at a picture of the bark, it can identify what the tree is. I didn't realise that it'd be that good, but it actually worked. So this is what the data looks like, but it's a bit hard to look at. That kind of gives me the shudders, and I think, oh, I don't want to waste time looking at that. But if you then click on the Analyze button rather than the data, it's very much like Microsoft Forms. It can do word clouds, which is great. So straight away, we can see cedar and oak are the most popular trees that were measured, probably because they're the closest ones to the building. When you look at the circumference of the tree, for example, this data, it also gives you different options of how you can present it. So you can have a look at it as a bar chart. Yeah, that's all right. Pie chart. I'm going to have to think about that. And I don't want to think about that too hard. But what I do love is a map. And as we can see here, all the trees and their circumference, they've all been plotted on a map, and we can see where the students have been. A few of them ended up in the Midlands because obviously they don't know where their school is based. Some of them apparently swam over a pond, a big lake as well, to go and do it. So meanwhile, all this data is being collated. And then what I did is I spent a bit of time. The first time I did this, yes, it took a while to do it. And David from Israel, he helped me tweak a couple of things. Done it once, now it's fairly easy to do. So by the time they came back, and I think in theory, I would actually give students access to this while they're doing it, so they could look to see where each other had been. Straight away, we've got a map of where they've been. There we go. They're the kids that went off-site and swam over the lake without the risk assessment. But it's also created pie charts, and you can actually click on the pie chart. It will zoom in to where the trees are, and it will kind of give you sort of carbon storage, and this data changes. So the actual questions I wanted them to think about, rather than faffing around with the answers and kind of have to help people with the maths, everything was basically included there. They had to do a tiny bit, multiply something by 200. But yeah, it just gave a nice overview, and all the data is collated, it automatically updates, and this is something they can refer to. One of the questions I had the first time I did it, I said, can we see any patterns? I looked there, I thought, oh, you idiot, you haven't actually checked this out before because there are no patterns. And I said, my bad, there's clearly no patterns. Ignore that question, because we couldn't see anything. The second time we did it, we had so much more data, and then we started to see more patterns coming up. And I think this is a great thing. If you use these surveys with the same classes or across a whole year group, year after year, yes, you do get richer data. One thing to consider, though, is with trees, they automatically gravitate to the biggest tree. So I think if I was to do this again, I would probably allocate across all my classes. I would say you guys are going to focus on this very small area so that we don't have doubling up of data. Is the data reliable? No. Is it accurate? Not particularly, because the quadratic equation that the maths department helped me use, again, isn't perfect. But I think it was a really good starting place. So there we go, we clicked on the cedar trees, it kind of shows you where they are, and you can see that the carbon storage is much, much bigger. Oh, me again. Oh, hold on. There was actually an extra slide in there.
Oh, have it all in.
Okay. There's QR code.
Sorry. I don't know where it's gone. That would be 1 second. My laptop has been a pain in the backside the last few days.
So there is just a very, very quick survey just to show you how the dashboards works live. There is a hopefully it comes up, a quick QR code that you quickly, you just plot in where your school is, location. Have you used survey 1, 2, 3 before? Are you likely to use it now? If you're able to do that, it's quite good in terms of showing. No, I haven't. Okay. Okay. Ooh, perfect. There we go. So if you scan.
You just being annoying. Sorry.
Okay, so if you're able to quickly fill out that survey, should literally take about 20 seconds to do. And then once you've done the survey, I just thought I've not actually put in the. Oh, actually, yeah. No, I think if you click maybe on there, it should open up the. Well, anyway, the links hasn't come up for some reason, but if you then scan the dinosaur QR code, it'll take you over to the dashboard. It took me about 10 minutes to make that dashboard, and you should start to see it will be color-coded based on those who've used Survey 123, those who haven't. The size of the circles are based on how many years you've been teaching, just a random bit of information on there. And also, it's just kind of just a couple of calculations. Don't know if we probably won't be able to bring it up.
No, I can't bring QR code. Not go straight into it. No, you didn't put a link on there because that's
that's a shame. Sorry, I've not put the link up there. So yeah, hopefully you can see the dashboards on your phone. I'll update this so you can see it. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm pretty certain I am going to be contacting you, Mark, for some more advice on that because the carbon stuff is really helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, our final session for the evening needs no introduction. Kit.
Why are you branding me an institution? That's such an oxymoron. Right. Roll that dice, please, if you've got one. Roll that die. Do it now. Do it now. Right. Okay. Hermione and Doris, what have you got? Oh, okay. Yep. Okay, the temperature. Right. Next one. What have you got? Davies? 4? On the die. A boat. A boat. Okay, lovely. A boat. What's next at the back? Next with the die. Yeah, whoever. Oh, great. That's brilliant. Okay, down here, Jen.
I've got
the hands and water. What was that go on? Hands and water. All right.
Rain?
Maybe. Okay, 3 more. James? No? Okay, yeah, at the back. Elaine? A bee. Oh, okay, that's a good one. Thank you. James? Everybody there? An hourglass. Nice. Okay, and one more. Our lovely sponsors here. And it's as though that was planned, wasn't it? An oak tree. Right. Right. Are you going to make this hard for me or a little bit easier? So hard will mean I've got to do those in order, more or less. Easier means I can do them in any order.
No, it's going to be hard. It's easy for
Well, I'll go down to top to bottom. I thought I'd go out for a sail on the crispy ocean. Crispy, sparkly. It was quite warm though. It was warming up. I dipped my thermometer in and I thought, I'd love to go to Bermuda, but this is off the Norfolk coast. What on earth is going on here? And so I dipped my hands into the water on the side of my boat and I scooped that up and let a drop drip. It was coloured red. And I thought to myself, what a strange thing. I hope my hand's not bleeding. I haven't done improvisation for a long time. And I thought to myself, what is this in my hand? What is causing this to be so warm? Why is it this sparkling ocean is telling me something in red. I get back to shore and I find a field of red roses. And I see a field of red tulips and red acacias. And in the distance, I can see a little speck. And in that little speck, I get closer. I can hear a humming and a buzzing. And I notice that this little speck is a bee. And this bee is in an ocean of its own. It puts itself on that petal, like I was on my sailboat, and dips itself and comes out with the pollen off that red petal. But that bee seemed very, very serene. It seemed very busy. How on earth does that thing fly? I have no idea. It seems like aerodynamically impossible. It seems frantic but peaceful at the same time. Like it's got all the time in the world and no time at all. And so I think to myself, how can I convert this time into something I can control? How can I make sure that that water is not as warm as it should be? We're talking about North Norfolk Coast, don't forget. How can I ensure that that bee can forever caress that red petal and take that pollen? So I look into myself. Do I do it as downward dog? Do I do it in the tree pose? That one really threw me. But maybe, yeah, the tree pose. That seems to make sense. Putting my leg up, trying to balance, trying to center myself. I haven't done yoga for 20 years. And finding my center as strong as an oak. And now I think to myself that when I connect back to the tree, when I connect back to the bee and the ocean, and I think to myself, that's what I need to be. If I connect back to nature, I've got all the time in the world. How was that? Right. No, I'm going to turn it on you now. Roll it again. Go on. Hina says I've got a bit of extra time apparently, so I'm going to pass it on to you. Right, so what we're going to do now, Hermione, I'll get you to start, you and Doris to start. All you need to do, I'll give you 30 seconds. I want you to come up with, we're going to play the sentence game, but without the paper. Now, how that works is that usually the way it works is really good. It works very, very good for doing processes and stuff like that, and storytelling. So what you do, I wish I did it actually properly now. You write the start of a story, you then pass it on to the next group or the next person. They write the continuation, they hide the preceding sentence, and then pass it on. And then they write the next one and hide the preceding sentence from there until you get to the end of the story, you unroll it, and it's a complete and utter tragedy, but it's funny and it's a really good way of developing processes and things like that. So, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do it with this dice instead. So you're going to say something, you're going to do a story using what your dice landed on.
But can we talk about what it is, or we have people to guess what it is?
Oh, Hermione, you've had an extra level of challenge. No, you're not going to say what's on that now. That's your fault.
Sorry.
Okay, so Hermione and Doris are going to give you a sentence or two to start the story. Then we're going to go, you folks, the second part of the story. Then we're going to go, where's the next one? Right at the back, or is it just a little bit further down? Yeah, you'll be 3. Scott and you lot, you'll be 4. The GA lot at the back will be 5, 6, 7. You're going to finish this up, or I'll tie it up. 30 seconds to think.
Okay.
Are you ready? You're ready?
Yeah.
The second group's not going to thank you if you're ready to go now.
Improvise.
And then when this is done, I'll tell you the point of the whole thing. You folks at home, I'm just walking around with a microphone now, right? I'll tell you what. This is taboo, but you know. Here we go. Right, here's everybody. Right, okay. Right, you ready? Now, if you don't listen, you're not going to know how to carry on the story, right? So you need to be listening. I missed that. Right, you ready? 2 sentences max. Right, and then see if you can guess what picture that Hermione and Doris have got. Ready, go.
It's famous in Manchester. Actually started in Manchester.
That's the start of the story. Oh, Doris, you can say.
It causes the air quality to be lower.
This is not, verbal charades. It's meant to be a story. Once upon a time in Manchester, there was something billowing, putting out pollution. But there was a solution. There was a rapid human-powered solution that came round the corner.
Wow. On 2 wheels.
There's number 3.
But the writer of the story decided to take a different slant. He knew what was happening next.
Throw us a bone.
There was massive protests.
I'm not sure I know what this story said. This wasn't part of the risk assessment either. Go on, John.
By an army of penguins.
The protesting penguins really loved each other.
But they lived a dream life, and from acorns little oaks grow.
My session earlier was about storytelling. Basically, randomised kind of pictographs from the Noun project. Can I miss something? What's sorry, Jen?
No, I've got
Just kidding, man. Just getting your breath back. Okay, they're called climate dice. You can pick them up. You can pick them up online. There's teachers guide that go with it. But basically, it's the use of storytelling to tell a narrative and to bring in and to allow young people to bring in their own lived experience to bring it in, and then you can change the story, adapt it to improve it to fit what you're trying to teach them. But you start off, it's like random like that. There you go. Thanks.
Are we in a fabulous community where people can just get up, talk about what they're passionate about, and we get so much out of it? So can we say a massive thank you to, I'm going to read my list so I don't miss anyone out. Lucy, Genevieve, Emma, Alice, Joe, Scott, Mark, Kit, who have I missed? I've missed someone. I'm like, Lucy, Genevieve, Emma, Alice, Joe, Scott, Mark, and Kit. I think that is everybody. I think that was 8. Was that 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I can't count.
I can't count.
I've lost it at this point now. Thank you so much. Can we give them a massive round of applause, please? Thank you so much for attending Teach Me. Remember, if you haven't spoken at one before, it'll be Catherine's next year. Please do put your name forward next year. And full sessions, I think you can go, I think it starts June the 1st. You can propose a session for next year's Connected Geographies. If you've spoken tonight and you haven't already spoken at a conference, you absolutely can do it. And if you haven't spoken tonight and you haven't ever, still do it anyway. I'm really looking forward to even more new voices. Quiz is up next if you've got a ticket for it. Otherwise, have a lovely evening, everybody. Thank you so much.
Can I have the dice back, please?
Oh, can we have the dice back, please?
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.